Today is Sunday, March 31st, 2024. Today I will discuss the essence of Buddhism, which is about overcoming suffering at its root cause. It involves guiding the mind, which is filled with ignorance, to reverse and see the truth, to see the ultimate truth, Dhamma. This process eliminates ignorance from the mind entirely, allowing the mind to be free from the cycle of birth and death, samsara. This is the core of Buddhism. It's purely about the mind. Our minds have been wandering in samsara for a long time because they are filled with ignorance, which is the only reason. This is the heart of the matter. All of us who follow Buddhism should focus solely on this principle. We should only discuss ignorance, which has ruled our hearts for so long, causing us to wander in samsara. It's just ignorance, and once you know, that's it. It's simple. Knowing means being aware from within. When you awaken from within, you will see the nature of things, Dhamma, and the three characteristics, impermanence, suffering, and non-self. It's easy to be free from samsara. It's not difficult at all. This is the essence of Buddhism. In the past, we couldn't grasp this principle because we studied various teachings from different teachers. We thought that Dhamma was about renouncing external things, paying respects, and creating external things. We thought it was about wearing certain clothes or staying in certain places. We thought it was about carrying burdens. Previously, I too carried the burden of precepts and Dhamma, carrying everything as people in the world do every day, because society teaches us this way. We thought that we had to go out somewhere, stay in temples or forests, wear specific robes, and observe precepts and Dhamma. This has been our understanding since childhood. We also thought that we had to spend money to make merit, and only with monks. We always thought that merit-making was about these external actions. It's all about sending the mind outward. Since birth until now, I've never heard anyone talk about Dhamma in relation to ignorance, avijja. There has been so little to no teaching about the ignorance of the mind. Finally, through following the principles of the four foundations of mindfulness, satipatthana, I came to realize that avijja is ignorance. When we are ignorant, our minds rely on mental formations, citta sankhara, to create fabrications. But when we awaken and recognize ignorance, it dissolves. When we awaken and see mental formations, we gain insight that these formations abide by the three marks of existence: impermanence, suffering, and non-self. We see them as a cycle, creating both happiness and suffering, and all conventional realities, labeling them as wholesome or unwholesome, as dualities. Understanding this, the previously held beliefs from childhood until now have been dismantled from the mind. The mind awakens automatically, continuously on its own. Ultimately, it breaks apart with the five aggregates, khandhas, collapsing from the heart, leaving only the pure element. This realization necessitates a change in approach. Teach and preach Dhamma with greater clarity and completeness, so that we all can easily grasp the core principles of Dhamma and attain enlightenment more readily. Just like when the Buddha taught, people could attain enlightenment immediately. His teachings were brief, yet people attained various stages of enlightenment. However, nowadays, there are very few who teach the essence of Buddhism. Most teachings focus on external practices, such as physical postures, which have become ingrained in traditions, cultures, and rituals. As a result, most people still rely on external sources for refuge, like worshipping deities, because they suffer greatly and seek relief through external means. They turn to mediums, sacred trees, spirits, and various natural elements, because they are unaware of the inner refuge. Many even rely on scriptures as their refuge, which are also external. There are very few who understand the core principles and turn inward. Over time, these individuals come to realize the truth and attain enlightenment according to their capabilities. It is fortunate that there are still those who grasp the principles and attain enlightenment. In this era, many lay people are enlightened because they experience immense suffering and seek liberation from it. Previously, it was believed that only monastics could attain enlightenment and that women had no chance. But upon deeply realizing the truth, it becomes clear that everyone can attain enlightenment: children, the elderly, the disabled, women and men, because we all possess a mind. The mind is genderless and free from varying degrees of defilements. It is inherently pure. Remember, our minds are fundamentally pure. They neither come nor go. Do you understand what this means? Our minds are pure and do not move or change. They are not bright or dark, neither born nor extinguished. Our minds have never been born and never die. The mind is the origin of all compounded phenomena. All things are compounded phenomena, but the mind is the original pure element, and all phenomena rely on this pure element. Compounded phenomena are impermanent, always changing and disintegrating, but the mind remains the pure, unchanging origin. This pure, original element has never been anything at all. It neither comes nor goes, is neither born nor dies. It is not involved with any conventions or states. It has no characteristics, no status, no gender, no age, no name, no parents. The mind has no parents, no children, no descendants, no family, no lineage. Our minds are pure elements accompanied by ignorance. This ignorance is the natural state of every mind, which needs to learn from various encounters. Understand this. Ignorance is not real, but it is necessary to explain it so that we can comprehend why our minds, as we understand them, after leaving the body, wander to find new vessels, being reborn as different beings. Once these beings die, the minds continue to wander and be reborn as terrestrial animals, aquatic animals, subterranean animals, aerial animals, sometimes as humans, or in more subtle forms as spirits, ghosts, hell beings, demons, or sometimes as deities, Indra, Brahma, or Yama, depending on what the mind clings to or what emotions it is lost in. If it clings to happiness, it is reborn in a good realm. If it clings to suffering, it is reborn in a bad realm. This is the condition we experience every day, waking up in a good or bad mood, immersed in those emotions. Some days we wake up irritable, other days happy. For example, while eating, we might suddenly feel good or bad. While talking, we might suddenly get angry or become more affectionate. Sometimes we celebrate, filled with joy from achieving something, while at other times we suffer from losses, unfulfilled desires, leading to anger, resentment and conflicts, even abandoning responsibilities, harming families, gambling, indulging in vices, committing adultery. These are the results of being swept away by fabrications, immersed in emotions of happiness or suffering. We have been like this since birth, sometimes in a good mood, sometimes not. This will continue until we leave this world, unless we awaken and see these natural states, understanding that they have no self. Only then can we be free. If we believe that these states have a self, we will continue to cycle in samsara. If we believe I am angry now and see it as real anger, or I am happy now and see it as real happiness, we remain in the cycle because we give value to these states, believing they have a self. Let's imagine a crocodile in a pond near a village. A group of children are playing nearby, and one of them jumps into the water, unaware of the crocodile. The crocodile attacks, and the other children scream and run to get their parents. One child is now inside the crocodile's stomach. Can you picture this? As you imagine this scene, do you believe it's real? We believe in the existence of these things because we can visualize them. But everything the teacher has said, it doesn't truly exist. Language doesn't truly exist. The images we see don't exist. Sound doesn't exist, right? Yet we rely on them. We cling to these images and sounds we think about. When we think like this, and imagine that the child is our nephew, someone we know, and we hear news of this attack, what happens? We get angry, we feel sad. We've lost something that belongs to us. Imagine if it were our own child, it would be even worse. We'd be completely consumed by this story, by these images, sounds, and emotions, wouldn't we? This is what it means for our minds to be trapped in suffering. Our minds are caught up in these emotions. So how do we prevent our minds from getting caught up in these emotions? Simple. We become aware. We recognize that these feelings, these images, these thoughts are just passing phenomena. We notice that in this very moment we are aware. If we are aware, then we are in the present moment. The content of these images and sounds is all an illusion. As soon as we become aware, we break free from this world of illusions and suffering. That's why the Buddha taught us to recognize suffering. This state of clinging to fabricated thoughts and feelings is suffering. Whether it's happiness or sadness, it's all suffering because it's impermanent. Our job is simply to be aware of what's happening inside. I'm trying to say that our minds are clouded by ignorance, so we rely on mental formations to understand the world around us. But our minds are pure and unaffected by these formations. They are like clear glass, pure and transparent. They have no form, no size, no beginning or end. They are like an empty space, free from darkness and light, dust and stars. Our minds are like this clear glass, but even clearer. They are pure. Our mind has never been involved with anything, never been born and never died. However, because its nature is to be a pure element, it lacks the wisdom of understanding. What it needs is wisdom. Once the mind possesses wisdom, it will no longer depend on anything, and it will cease to be born again. It will not become attached to any form of existence in the three realms of the world. Let me illustrate this. Our mind is inherently untouched by birth or death, regardless of the vessel it occupies. It is necessary to explain to people that our mind is composed of ignorance, or avidya. To make this clear, I'll use the analogy of a soap bubble. The soap bubble encloses an empty space. Originally, our mind is like this empty space, pure and empty. But ignorance wraps around this pure empty essence like a thin layer of soap film. The space inside the bubble represents our mind, which is pure and transparent. It is the element of emptiness, which doesn't really mean empty in the conventional sense, but rather free from emptiness. Our mind, as a pure element, is encased in this thin layer of ignorance, like a soap bubble. When our mind is covered by ignorance, it needs to learn and acquire wisdom. To do this, it creates a tool called mental formation or citta sankhara. Think of our mind as being like water. The natural state of water includes waves. Waves are just phenomena of water, not entities by themselves. If you try to catch a wave, you will only find water. Similarly, mental formations, waves, are not separate entities, but are just phenomena of the mind. Just as it is the nature of water to have waves, so too it is the nature of mind to have mental formations. When there is a mind, there will be mental formations. When the mind creates mental formations or mental activities, known as citta sankhara, to learn and understand things that come into contact with it, it relies on these formations to process experiences. However, the mind is inherently pure and remains unaffected by these activities. It only serves as a vessel for experiencing and recognizing sensations. The mental formations act like a thin layer of soap bubbles surrounding the pure essence of the mind. When the mind encounters external stimuli, the bubble-like formations ripple and react, but the pure mind itself remains untouched and unchanging inside. The mind does not involve itself in these processes or disturbances. It simply remains in its pure state, observing without verbal language or personal involvement. It knows without words or narrative. It just experiences. Consider the example of the wind passing through space. The wind represents the mental formations, and the space symbolizes the pure essence of the mind. The wind moves through the empty space, which remains unaffected by its presence. Similarly, the mind remains unaffected by the fluctuations and disturbances caused by the mental formations. These disturbances arise and disappear, but the essence of the mind, like the empty space, remains unchanged. The Buddha taught that suffering or dukkha is the only thing that arises, persists, and ceases. Suffering is a condition of mental formation. All thoughts, sounds, and emotions are aspects of these formations. They arise from ignorance, avidya, which is like the soap bubble enclosing the pure essence of the mind. Inside this bubble, the mind remains in its true nature, pure and untainted by the formations around it. Understanding this concept means recognizing that while mental formations are essential for learning and experiencing, the mind itself remains a pure element, untouched and unaltered by these experiences. This understanding can lead to enlightenment for those who have the wisdom to grasp it. The mental formations and disturbances are merely temporary and do not affect the inherent purity of the mind. The mind continuously seeks to learn about external things because it lacks the wisdom to understand itself. Without someone to teach it, it focuses solely on learning about the external world. The mind learns from everything it encounters, extending its learning beyond the physical universe, but it never turns inward to explore its own fundamental nature. This is an example of the mind being directed outward. It relies on mental formations, or citta sankhara, which act as a veil of ignorance, to experience and learn about the external world. The mind depends on these formations to process and understand experiences because the pure essence of the mind itself cannot articulate or process knowledge directly. Instead of being self-reliant and understanding its own nature, The mind depends on these mental formations, which create the external conditions for learning. This is analogous to a newborn depending on its parents and caregivers before it can become self-sufficient. Similarly, a person who is ignorant must rely on knowledgeable teachers to learn and understand the core teachings. As one progresses in learning, particularly with the guidance of skilled teachers who provide clear and detailed instruction, it becomes easier to attain enlightenment. The more precise and thorough the teachings, the more accessible it is for the learner to achieve understanding and realization. The teaching by great teachers, such as the Buddha, can be compared to a master chef preparing a special dish for us. The teacher, like a top chef, meticulously prepares the food, sets the table, and presents the meal. Our only task is to open our mouths, take a bite, chew, and swallow. For a highly skilled teacher, teaching Dharma with clarity and precision is like serving a perfectly prepared meal. When we listen and understand, the realization comes immediately and clearly. This is the mark of someone with great wisdom. Such teachers deliver teachings with simplicity and ease, avoiding complex concepts and making the essence of the teachings accessible. In contrast, those with less wisdom may need to rely on complicated theories and numerous references to explain the Dharma. Their teachings might involve complex arguments and elaborate explanations because their understanding is not as direct. However, a teacher with profound wisdom speaks directly from their enlightened experience, without relying on external references or texts. They convey the truth in its purest form, directly from their own realization. The essence of their teachings is simple. Everything is impermanent and devoid of inherent self. Understanding this fundamental truth allows one to transcend ignorance. The Buddha, for instance, taught the Dharma in a straightforward manner, making it easy to grasp and apply. The mind, which is conditioned by ignorance, is a factor that causes it to create and sustain mental formations. This is why it relies solely on mental formations. This is called directing the mind outward. The Buddha instructed us to be mindful and aware within ourselves, and not to direct the mind outward. He said that suffering should be understood as it is, because mental formations are the essence of suffering. His guidance is to recognize and understand this, without trying to change anything. Simply recognize ignorance and the nature of mental formations. When we are mindful and observe our mental formations closely, we see that sounds, thoughts, and emotions do not have inherent existence. They are not tangible or substantial. For example, the sound we hear now, does it have any intrinsic existence? Is it tangible? The mental images and emotions we experience, such as desires or aversions, satisfaction or dissatisfaction, or even calmness, do they have inherent substance? If we examine closely, we find that they lack any real substance. When we hear a sound, it is simply the mind's recognition of it. Even if we are not intentionally focusing, the sound is heard. But where is the mind? It is not part of the physical body. If we were to remove the mind from the body would immediately begin to decay. The body is not us, nor does it function independently. It is alive because of the presence of the mind, which is the source of life and purity. Therefore, the mind is the one that perceives the sound, and we do not need to intentionally focus on it. The mind's role is simply to recognize. The Buddha made it clear that even the mind that is aware is not us. It is just knowing on its own. The element of awareness does not belong to us. It is simply awareness itself. There is no self in any of it. Dharma is simple. It is simple because those with great wisdom teach it in a straightforward and direct manner. There is no need to take a circuitous route. If you are going to Bangkok, it's right here. There's no need to detour to other continents. You can go straight to Bangkok, whether you walk, run, or ride a bicycle. Go directly without taking detours, without needing to paddle a boat or go into the forest. There is no need to cross continents or get a passport. You don't need to stockpile food or accumulate merits. Accumulating merits or virtues, where can you accumulate them? There is nothing to accumulate because the Buddha taught that the 5 aggregates are not self. All phenomena are not self. There is nothing substantial to accumulate. When we grasp this fundamental principle of the Dharma, there are many who achieve enlightenment instantly. They realize the truth with full clarity, shedding tears of wonder, and the 5 aggregates disintegrate into fragments before their eyes and hearts. The mind experiences the state of Buddhahood becoming completely clear and free of everything. There is nothing left, just pure clarity. When the mind is pure, there is no one to know and nothing to be known. There is no coming or going, no arising or ceasing. There are no concepts of merit or demerit, good or bad, wholesome or unwholesome. These do not exist in the pure element. Previously, one might have understood accumulation, but upon realization of the true nature, tears flow. Accumulating merit or virtue is futile. The pure element has none of these. All mental formations are just that. Mental formations, creating illusions of virtue and non-virtue, of happiness and suffering. It is like deceiving oneself. It is as if we are dreaming while asleep. We are already in the pure element, but we dream that we are human, engaging in good and bad deeds, accumulating virtues and demerits, and trying to build up merit. We practice various methods, but once we awaken, the teachers tell us to be aware within ourselves. Everything is illusion and non-existent. When we wake up, we see that it was all just a dream. What about our parents? Are they real, or are they also in the dream? Can we accept that? Does the mind have parents? Is the mind male or female? Does it have children or offspring? In the past, when the Buddha left everything to seek liberation from suffering and to attain enlightenment, people criticized him, saying he abandoned his family, wife and newborn child. They criticized him for being selfish and so on. Why was he criticized? Because people were blinded by ignorance and did not understand the difference between pure Dharma and constructed Dharma. The Dharma of liberation is free from conventional reality. The Buddha sought liberation from conventional reality and attained the purity of mind. Once he achieved this, he would later teach and guide others according to their capacity and readiness. If someone desires to know the Dharma, they must come forward and be open to it. If they wish to attain enlightenment, they must come inward. Suffering arises from the mind's formations, doesn't it? The five aggregates too. Suffering arises from the mind's formations and ignorance. Because of ignorance, people cling to the notion that they are human, even though they have never been born. They are just mind and pure elements. Having mistaken themselves as human, they end up clinging to the five aggregates. Due to ignorance, they have families, societies, wealth, fame, and the four requisites: food, clothing, shelter, and medicine, as well as the 5 and 6 factors. They create a conventional world for themselves. When what they have is lost, they cry over it. For instance, if one's wealth, which took a lifetime to accumulate, is suddenly lost due to a scam, one might cry and lament over it. Imagine losing 2 million baht from a scam, with no one able to help. What do? Cry, scream, and feel devastated as if everything has been lost. This pride in wealth, now vanished, is gone in an instant. The reality is that there is nothing that is truly ours or ours to own. The body is not truly ours, and we are not humans, but we cling to the belief that we are the body and the human being. It's like dreaming. In a dream, nothing is real. The Buddha taught that there is no inherent existence in the 5 aggregates. Whether you believe it or not, it's irrelevant. We should write it down. The 5 aggregates, body, mind, material, mental images, and emotions, do not have inherent existence. The body itself does not have an inherent existence. Post it on your wall at home. When you're angry, recognize that anger has no inherent existence. When you're laughing and happy, recognize that happiness also has no inherent existence. Just acknowledge it. Happiness and suffering are temporary and have no true essence. If you lost over 2 million baht to a call center scam and haven't eaten for 3 days because you're so distraught, why don't you eat? It's gone, so what can you do? You've reported it to the police and the bank, so what more can you do? Why dwell on it? The money is gone. Sell your car, invest the money, buy food, grow your own food. Start over. It's like being born again. Every new beginning is a chance to start over. Why be so miserable? Everything in this world is impermanent. Things come and go according to cause and effect. Don't you see? We cling to things, always projecting our minds outward. Now, let's talk about what's inside. Does the mind have parents, children, or possessions? Do you understand the concept of pure consciousness? If it's pure, it's free from good or bad karma. Nothing can cling to it. But we accumulate things, cling to things, and carry burdens. We're so attached to our sense of self. The mind is constantly being conditioned and always projecting outward. When will it be pure? When will it return to its pure element? When will the mind finally come home? Don't forget, the mind is a pure element. When it becomes associated with mental formations, sankhara, which involve projecting the mind outward, it starts to give value to itself. It assigns value to itself and to its thoughts, thinking, I am the one who knows. See how it perceives itself as the knower, giving value to emotions, happiness, suffering, anger, hatred, delight, indifference, and concentration. It assigns value to itself and to mental images, considering them as thoughts and sounds, attributing value to them all. It also assigns value to the material world, our body, our family, our wealth, the four elements, earth, water, fire, air, and the various external factors. The entire universe is considered ours, projected outward. Understand this. Come back inside before you get lost in these external points. Does the mind have parents? The teacher is speaking about the mind, not about people. Don't get confused. Ask simply, does the mind have parents? The mind has no form, right? We search for identity and cling to it, forgetting that we are the mind. We are the pure elements that are nothing and have no inherent existence. To clarify, the mind must return to its pure state. We have only one path. To return to the pure element, we must reverse the current and stop projecting the mind outward, as that is the projection itself. The more we seek external teachings or external refuges, the more we get entangled. We build and create enormous external structures, thinking we accumulate merit. In fact, we are just adding to the confusion. We worship external objects, mud piles, trees, fire, rivers, fields, crossroads, and even vehicles, believing they are sacred. But true sacredness is the pure element, the essence of the mind. The Buddha paid homage to this truth, the pure element. The Buddha revered the Dharma, the truth above all, as it is the origin of everything. Nothing is greater than Dharma, which is the source of all. The ultimate truth, or pure consciousness, is something we all must attain. We must realize that all mental fabrications are impermanent and have no inherent existence. Don't cling to anything, for nothing truly belongs to us. Once you realize that the five aggregates, form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness, are not you, and that even your thoughts and understanding are not you, you will see that nothing is truly real. Sounds, images, emotions, and perceptions, none of these have a permanent existence. Even your understanding of these things is impermanent. There's nothing there except pure consciousness. It is not something, it is simply being. This is the ultimate truth. The mind, the pure element, it's already within you. To free yourself from delusions, simply awaken to this reality. When we project our minds outward, we move against the natural flow. Instead, turn inward and become aware. Be aware of this very moment, of this mind that is using these mental formations, these thoughts, feelings, and perceptions. When you notice that you're thinking, simply observe it. Don't get caught up in it. Some people ask, how do I do that? Well, are you hearing my voice right now? Focus your awareness inward. Notice the sound of my voice within you. It's just a sound, a vibration that's touching your consciousness. You're perceiving it as a sound, as words. But when the sound stops, there's nothing there. When a new sound begins, you perceive it again. See? Even in the act of perceiving, you can see that both the perceived and the perceiver arise and cease at the same time. Some people ask where the mind is. It's where there's nothing. It's within. If you say it's in your chest, you're implying that you have a physical body with a chest. But the mind doesn't have a shape or location. It's simply aware. When you hear my voice, the awareness isn't in your ears. It's deeper within. If you look carefully, you'll realize it's beyond your ears. The ears are just the gateway. Some people struggle to find this awareness. They want to grasp it, to pin it down. But it's formless and intangible. Simply know that you are aware of this sound right now. That's enough. Understand that this sound you're hearing is just a phenomenon that your mind is perceiving. And this perception itself is impermanent. It arises and ceases. See how both the perceived and the perceiver arise and cease together. Some people can't seem to find it. They want to know, to search, to grasp something tangible. But there's nothing tangible to grasp. Just be aware of the sound you're hearing now. That's enough. Understand that the sound you're hearing is merely something your mind is perceiving. And does that sound seem to have a permanent existence? Where did it go? When a new sound arises, your mind perceives it again. See? Both the perceived and the perceiver arise and cease together. When the sound stops, they both disappear, and when a new sound begins, the process repeats. See? Your mind is a pure element. It isn't anything at all. It is the element of emptiness, an element that is entirely vacant and pure. When we say emptiness, it is to help humans understand. It is not anything. It is very pure. When something impacts it, it simply performs the function of perceiving. We should see that sounds, mental images, or emotions are just things being perceived. They are natural phenomena in their own state. When the mind is impacted, it perceives it. This perception is not us. It is a natural process where it perceives on its own. It thinks on its own, has its own emotions of happiness or suffering according to causes and conditions. All phenomena arise according to causes and conditions, and dissolve when these causes and conditions cease. As Anya Kondanya said, anything that arises naturally will dissolve when the causes and conditions end. It is the nature of things. These phenomena are called natural states. They exist as they are, arising and dissolving according to causes and conditions. We need to see and understand this within ourselves. This is called mindfulness. Anyone who is aware and observes within themselves notices any inner voices or thoughts. Just recognize them and let them go. For example, if the inner voice says, "I want ice cream, I should go buy ice cream. I want strawberry or chocolate flavor. It would be nice to have something cold in this hot weather." Or, "I want grilled pork skewers with hot sticky rice and spicy papaya salad." It sounds good to buy grilled pork skewers and have them with papaya salad. See the inner voice that says these things? Notice how we flow along with these inner voices, influenced by mental fabrications. We cling to and become accustomed to flowing with these fabrications, getting caught up in them and suffering from them. But when we start becoming aware more frequently, recognizing that we are currently thinking, just knowing and letting go is enough. Don't play with it, let it think, imagine, and feel its emotions. The 5 aggregates, khandhas, will perform their functions fully. Our role is simply to be aware, to glance at and observe nature. Let the fabrications appear and be known. Once we are frequently mindful and aware, we notice the inner voices and just recognize them. Knowing them and letting them go is enough. Listen to my tapes often, then teach your children, relatives, and students. If you're a teacher, teach people and discuss the awakening within. Do not get carried away with thoughts. It will turn into a village of awakening, a society of awakening, a nation of awakening. Once this happens, it's done. Everyone in the world will attain enlightenment because of the principle of awakening within, called the principle of mindfulness. Whoever is awakened within, it is possible to attain enlightenment and liberation from suffering in this very lifetime. We should encourage each other about awakening, ask each other about awakening. Can you see the thoughts? Don't play with them. Some people, when they see their thoughts for the first time, will have tears streaming down their face because they suddenly realize they have been carried away by every single thought. After that, they continuously see their thoughts. They will automatically awaken by themselves until finally they see even the knower is not self. The 5 aggregates, khandhas, will disintegrate and dissolve before their eyes. The mind will be purified, as pure as its original state, clearly realizing that it is not born, that it's over. It is wonderful in its own way. It is just a natural phenomenon. Let us know that awakening within will see mental fabrications, and the mind will not cling to these fabrications because of ignorance. Ignorance is what makes the mind cling to fabrications for a long time, becoming accustomed to flowing with thoughts, memories, and emotions of happiness and suffering. But when we start practicing awakening, it will be a bit difficult at first because of the effort to know. Know and let go, know and let go, again and again. As we begin to know frequently, becoming accustomed, I tell you to know comfortably. Don't force it. Know it lightly and comfortably. Let it think whatever it wants. Know it. Observe it. The mind will get used to awakening, gradually knowing and letting go, until it no longer clings to thoughts. Previously, it flowed 100% with thoughts. Now it flows 50% and knows 50%. Next, it will know 70% and flow 30%. Eventually, it will know 99% and flow only 1%. Finally, it will know 100% without clinging at all. Wisdom will emerge clearly, seeing that what knows is not us, and what thinks is not us. Everything is natural. Let the aggregates perform their functions. The mind will release everything because it has realized with wisdom that the 5 aggregates are not us or ours. The enlightened state will be complete, and all knowledge will disappear. This is just an analogy. Some people might just get goosebumps or shed tears, understanding that they are free, lighter, and no longer bound. Once realized, they know it will not be born again. Some might ask, how do you know it's the end? How do you know you're full after eating? Do you need to ask your mother? No, you'll know for yourself. If you know, you will know it is the end. The essence of the Dhamma is this: to awaken the mind and not let it flow with mental fabrications. Dhamma is not external. It is not about beings or individuals. Dhamma is timeless, not related to time or place. It is about now, right now. Are you aware of what you're thinking? The present is not out there in the forest or mountains, it is now. Knowing now will enlighten now. Enlightenment means realizing there is nothing to be or to do. It's suitable to conclude here. May everyone who has the resolution to not be reborn achieve their aspiration, realize the Dhamma, and attain enlightenment promptly. We've reached the end of today's Dharma talk. Thank you all for listening. May you all be happy, peaceful, and free from suffering. If you enjoyed this clip, don't forget to like, share, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon for notifications so you don't miss new content in the future. Thank you.